Now, if we examine the application DB context, you will notice all the Fluent API is clustered in one place. But can we organize this better? What if we want to move everything with book author map in its own class file, everything related to author or book detail in their individual class file, and make this on-model creating less clusterful? To do that, let me go to data access and let me create a new folder there. I will call that Fluent Config. Let me do that first for the book detail here. So we will add a new class file and I will call that Fluent Book Detail Config. Let me make this a public class, and if we want to add configuration for Fluent API, this should extend from the interface iEntityType configuration that is inside Entity Framework core, so we will add the using statement. Now there we have to define the entity on which it will be adding configuration. That entity is Fluent underscore book detail. Now the steps here are slightly different if you are working with Entity Framework, but here we are dealing with Entity Framework core. In Entity Framework, you would have to configure all of this inside a constructor. But with EF core, we need a method here, which is public void configure. And then for the parameter here, we will have entity type builder, and that is inside Microsoft.entityframeworkcore.metadata.builder. I will call that as model builder. If we examine the application DB context, we are using the same name, model builder. Let me copy and paste that right here. With entity type builder, we will define the class here, which is Fluent underscore book detail. Then in here, we have all the configuration, like model builder dot. You can see we have has alternate key, or we have the has key, we have dot property, and so on. So if we go back here, let me copy everything with book detail. Let me cut that and paste it here. We do not need the entity here because we have defined that already. All we need is model builder. Now I have used the same name, that way I do not have to delete or rename this model builder. But perfect, you can see everything is working as expected. But for the next one here, let me first save what we have. That way the file when we copy, everything gets copied over. So save everything, we will copy the Fluent book detail that we have, paste it one more time. I will rename that to be Fluent book and not book detail. So we have Fluent book config, copy and change the class name here. This will be on Fluent book. Let me copy, paste it here. And what will be the properties? We have that right here. Cut that and we will paste it. Let me remove the entity and clean up the file. Perfect. Fluent book is also done. Copy and paste that again. Next one will be author config. Copy the class name. We are in the author config. Change that to be author. Perfect. We go to application DB context. Cut the Fluent author. Paste it here. And remove the entity. Perfect. Looks good. Save that. Finally, we need the publisher here. So let me do that. We will go to application DB context, cut for publisher, paste it right here, and I will rename them. We do not need the entity. Let me remove that. Perfect. Let me go to application DB context, and we need the book author map. Let me do that. Copy and paste the publisher config. And we have the book author map config. Copy that name, go back here, cut everything for the book author map here, and we will paste it right there. Change that and remove the entity. Perfect, looks good. Now with that, you can see how clean our on model creating looks with all the configuration moved to their individual files. Now I want to point out something with the configuration that I typically like to follow. First thing I like on top is name of the table if we are renaming that. After that, I will add name of the columns, and then I would have the primary key. So let me add that. And after that, we will have other validations like is required. And finally, I like the relation. This way, everything will always be organized no matter how many validations, how many relations you have in a table. So try to follow certain architecture of how you add everything inside the Fluent configuration. So perfect, we have added the individual config file, but how will we add them inside the application DB context? That is pretty simple as well. On Model Builder here, we have something called as apply configuration, and there we will create new, and we have Fluent author config. We can pass an object. Copy and paste that few more times, and I will add all the config. So perfect, with that everything looks good. Now one thing that you notice is I have left this right here, because that is inside the actual book where we were using data annotation and not Fluent API, so they are kind of hybrid. Here I believe we should also have the mapping table with composite key. Did I accidentally add it here? Yes, I did. I'll have to cut this and I'll have to paste it right here, because this was not on the Fluent, but it was on the book author map entity. So these are kind of hybrid because here we are using Fluent API as well as data annotation. So those I will leave right here. Remaining ones I have added with their individual config file where we were only using Fluent API. So if there is some configuration that you do with data annotation and some using Fluent API in the same file, then I try to keep them here. That way you can differentiate that this is a combination of both data annotation as well as Fluent API.